Tilehurst End podcast by Reading fans for Reading fans.
Hello and welcome to the Tilehurst End weekend preview. It's the hope that kills you, it seems, with Reading following up a promising point at Brentford with a poor 1-0 defeat at home to QPR on Tuesday, meaning we go into Saturday's trip to West Brom with our expectations rock bottom once again. My name is Olly Allen, your host for today's show, and I'm pleased to say that I'm joined once again by the Wokingham Paper's Tom Crocker. How's it going, Tom?
Yeah, not too bad. It's turned into another disappointing week, I think. So after the positive of last week, it's going to be another downbeat one, I think.
I mean, it's difficult sort of not to talk about the QPR game, despite this being a preview show, but we will link it into sort of how it affects Reading going into this West Brom fixture, because it does quite significantly, really. I mean, as I said in the intro, sort of things were looking up after that 2-2 draw with Brentford, and it almost seemed as though, if we could get that win against QPR, making it 3 unbeaten, with 2 of those being victories, we could have sort of had that confidence going into this tricky trip to West Brom. As it turns out, of course, Reading were pretty diabolical on Tuesday night, sort of created virtually nothing going forward, and we're almost back to square one, really. I mean, it's almost impossible to predict sort of what Reading team will turn up each game, both in Paul Clement's selection and in the performance the players give, really. I mean, but I think one thing's for sure. I think if we play like that again, we could get beaten, quite handily by a West Brom team who are a lot better than QPR.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you say it's difficult to predict. I think my prediction league sort of suggests that got it wrong again this week twice. So
I think we all did.
Yeah. Sort of Clement said that after the game, that if they perform anything like they did on Tuesday, they're going to get beaten on the weekend. And I don't think anyone can disagree. Like I say, the game on Saturday, they played well against a good Brentford team. I think most people would have taken a point, but that's the problem with the draw. If you don't then back it up with a win, it's just 1 point out of 2, and it turns into a bad week, really. And you have to also look at the fact they let in a stoppage time equaliser at Brentford as well, so it could have just been so different all round. But yeah, Tuesday night, it's I don't know if it's quite back to square one, because they have picked up a couple of wins in that time. Picked up a few points, so they are out of the bottom 3 now at least, which I suppose is one small step forward, but it's just one step forward, one step back every week. They're not getting any sort of momentum, any consistency, and the home form is. Yeah, it's just dreadful, as Clement said. It's the way they played on Tuesday night, the first half especially, and then the whole game really. They created a couple of chances in the second half, hit the post, but QPR were made to look better than they are, I think, which has happened a few times this season at home, and Reading could have no complaints of losing that game. And like you say, if they don't step it up considerably at the weekend, then they'll definitely lose at West Brom as well, and then we'll go into another international break on the back of a defeat, and possibly in the bottom 3 or probably just outside it, and you're wondering where the next points are coming from again.
West Brom, in contrast, sort of come into this game just a point off the top of the table. They're unbeaten in 6 games in the league, and they've scored 2 late goals last night, Wednesday, to come back and draw with Sheffield Wednesday. So I think that in many ways will feel like a win for them. I think they'll be looking to take that momentum into Saturday's game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way it works. And obviously I think it was 2 in the last 5 minutes, wasn't it? 2-0 down, and they haven't lost, I don't think, since August in the league, and not at home since the opening day. So yeah, they're certainly finding a way of playing. I think they're top scorers in the league quite comfortably. They score a lot of goals. They're playing a new style under Darren Moore, and they look like one of the sides who's going to push on this season. They've still got many Premier League players in that team, and plenty of good players who can hurt Reading. And look at the strikers, really. They're going to say hard to handle Gale and Rodriguez, and they've got such a talented side, and I think they'll give anyone a test at home, especially a team like Reading, who at the moment are struggling to pick up any sort of wins. But on the way away from home, they're doing all right, but I think this is going to be another very difficult test, and the confidence, like you say, is going to be back down to rock bottom after Tuesday night.
I recorded the view from the town end with the West Brom fan that you'll hear in a minute before the midweek fixtures. And I sort of said that the outcome of our game with QPR and their game with Sheffield Wednesday could have a big impact on this weekend. It's certainly looking that way at the moment with sort of the contrasting results. West Brom are unsurprisingly the favourites for this one. They're 8-15 to get the win with odds checker #GambleAware. Reading are 5-1 and the draw is 16-5. And certainly, as you mentioned, with the likes of Jay Rodriguez, Dwight Gale, Harvey Barnes, who scored another superb goal last night. He's on loan from Leicester. These are top top Championship players to sort of, we saw Reading, the goal that Reading conceded on Tuesday was just atrocious defending. I think if we defend like that again against those quality players, then we could really get punished.
Yeah, 100%. Like I say, I think Barnes has probably been one of their key men by the sounds of it this season. They're a little bit worried he might get recalled in January, I think, but he's come into the side, and the rest of them are, most of them pretty much there from last year. But like I said, they ended last season pretty well under Darren Moore, so they came in with a little bit of momentum, and they've shown now that they're up there to stay this year. I think Gale and Rodriguez, you're not going to find much better strike duo in the Championship, and all the defenders have played in the Premier League as well. And yeah, at least say the 2 games in midweek probably will have a pretty big impact on it. You mentioned the odds there. I mean, that sounds pretty much exactly the same to the game last week at Brentford, so maybe that's some sort of positive thing kind of take that they upset the odds there. But you have to wonder how they pick themselves up from Tuesday night, because it looks like whenever they get a good result now, they just can't back it up in these other games where they should be getting the points, and they're stuck in a rut near the bottom of the league, and it's hard to see. I think if they'd won, they could have opened up a little bit of a gap, pulled away a little bit from the bottom sort of 5 or 6, but now they're right back in it, and if they lose this weekend, they're going to be stuck in it, and then they're going to have to. I think they've got a couple of big games straight after the break, but yeah, this trip to West Brom is going to be possibly the hardest one they have all season, just because of the movement of the front line and the amount of goals that they score.
I think this is the first of the newly relegated teams we're facing this season. We play Swansea at the end of October. I'm not entirely sure when we play Stoke, but this is actually the first of the 3 teams that have come down from the Premier League that we'll be facing so far this season. I will try and end this on a bit of a positive. I think we are being a little bit doom and gloom about Reading's chances, and as I said, it is sort of virtually impossible sort of to predict what sort of Reading team will turn up. But so far this season, we have strangely sort of been better away from home and against the better teams. I think we've lost just once on the road so far this season, and obviously got the point at Aston Villa, who I know obviously haven't made the best start and sacked Steve Bruce yesterday, but they used to have sort of quite a lot of quality in their side. And of course, as you mentioned, we very nearly came away with the 3 points at Brentford last weekend, so we might well be surprised.
Yeah, I would say they definitely are playing better away from home. Clement's trying to put his finger on why. He sort of said maybe they're more concentrated from the start. They know that when they go to these places, they got to dig in and fight for everything they're going to get, which obviously it's a bit of a problem that they can't replicate that at home. But the away form, they lost just 1 game, and they've gone to some difficult places and put in some good performances and picked up some points. So nothing's impossible for sure, but they're going to have to repeat last Saturday's game and somehow get Tuesday out of the system pretty quickly. But yeah, it's doable. You never know in this league. It's a cliche, but it really is. You look at the results every weekend, and West Brom only drew the other night, so you never know. They're not like they're winning every single game. So who knows? It's going to have to take something pretty special, but yeah, it is doable.
You would hope as well that there might be a reaction from the players to Tuesday night, and I'm sure they won't be happy with the way they performed against QPR. And we'll discuss which 11 players we think should be starting straight after the view from the town end, where we get the thoughts of an opposing fan ahead of the game.
The view from the town end. What do the opposition think?
View from the town end time then, and with Reading making the trip up to West Brom this weekend, I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by Baggies fan Josh Bland. How's it going, Josh?
Yeah, very well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. I was going to start with how your season has gone so far. It was your first campaign back in the Championship since 2010. And sort of at a glance, I think you appear to sort of adapted quite well. I mean, it was quite a shock to see you lose at home to Bolton on the opening day, but since then you sort of really kicked on. And at the time of recording, before the midweek Championship fixtures, in which West Brom visit Sheffield Wednesday, you currently sit top of the table and are the division's top scorers.
Yeah, it's quite something. It's a really nice kind of antidote to the kind of quite boring, horrible football that we've been playing for the past kind of 3 or 4 seasons. So I think it's kind of become attached to us. I think going into the season, we didn't entirely know what to expect as a fan base. Obviously, the last time we were in the Championship was obviously like a decade ago, and the division has changed a lot since we were kind of getting, when we were kind of coming up and going down every season. And I think I was not alone in thinking or being quite sceptical as to whether we were going to be able to push for promotion. I didn't think we'd necessarily had a deep enough squad. I was, and the whole kind of appointing the assistant manager thing historically doesn't tend to work too well. But Darren Moore, credit where credit's due, he's incredibly popular with the fans and popular with the players. He's managed to foster a really kind of good feeling around the club, and has kind of moulded this team into quite a quite a strange but very, very kind of effective 3-4-1-2 system that seems to be really working. And yeah, it's just fantastic, really exciting, and lots of goals. You can't really ask for much more as a fan.
I mean, you mentioned you're sort of not knowing what to expect going into the season, but sort of certainly from the outside, I think you look at, obviously there's always naturally sort of a bit of pressure on the relegated team to sort of go straight back up, and I think you were second favourites to win the league with the bookmakers, and sort of you look at players like of Jay Rodriguez, Dwight Gale, Jake Livermore, who was in England squad 12 months ago. Was there? Do you think sort of the squad perhaps felt that pressure, sort of trying to get back into the Premier League at the first time of asking?
Yeah, definitely, and especially with all the kind of the financial benefits that's attached to being in the Premier League, it's so important with the wages that we're currently paying the players that we get back up, within 2 or 3 seasons. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think Albion fans we've been so used to. Pulis was always so down on our squad and was always talking to the fact of we need to improve here, we need to improve there. Actually, I think it's almost a bit of a chronic self-esteem issue with Albion fans and our squad and how good it is. But you're right. If you look at, on paper, certainly, you look at the spine of the team, Johnston, Dawson, Higazi, Livermore, Gail, Rodriguez, Phillips, these are all players who should be kind of playing Premier League football, really. And so certainly the first 16, 18 players in our squad, that is a promotion winning squad. It's just whether or not we get some key injuries is going to really determine our fate this season.
It certainly isn't easy to live up to expectations, though, as Stoke are finding out. So huge credit must go to Darren Moore for the work he's done at West Brom. And he obviously came in towards the end of last season, took the club on a great run of results, won Manager of the Month. But it was always going to be a virtually impossible job, to keep the club in the Premier League. The pressure was very much off then. So I was personally intrigued sort of to see how he would do. In his first full season, when the scenario is quite different. How is he coping in what is his first job as a manager?
I mean, the table doesn't lie, really. I think you can't ask him to kind of do any more. I kind of totally get where you're coming from in the sense that at the back end of last season there was zero pressure on him. He was already loved by the fans. He's pretty much a club legend anyway from his time playing for us. And so he came in. In many ways he almost had the easiest job that he could have possibly wished for, in the sense that we were going down anyway. And he could have lost all the games and no one would have really kind of resented him for it. And it's a completely different kettle of fish when he arrives first day of training for pre-season, and it has to convince the players that he's got a philosophy and he's going to be able to coach them to promotion. I think what has been really, really noticeable as a fan, aside from the general results on the pitch, is the feeling around the club. And it's partially because I think of his kind of cult of personality. It's partially because he's so liked anyway around the club, and it's partially because of the really kind of quite progressive football that he's playing. But it's everything about the way that the club feels is a stark contrast to managers that we've had over the past 3 or 4 years, and it's just a really, really kind of happy fan base and a happy place to go and watch football at the moment. So the Hawthorns, that is. So he's done brilliantly, and he's kind of managed to foster a real kind of excitement. But yeah, we'll see. I'm a bit hesitant to kind of wax too lyrical about it, because it's a long season ahead.
As for Saturday's game, and how much of a challenge do you think that Reading will present West Brom with? I mean, I suppose on paper it's a game that many West Brom fans will look at and say, we should be winning that. And that's with no disrespect to ourselves. I think that's just a mentality. When you are at the top of the table facing a team near the bottom. Yeah,
it is. If we are serious about going up, we have to look at fixtures like this, and it's the kind of the quote unquote home banker, if you will. We have to be winning these kind of games. I was impressed with the way that you performed. Obviously on Saturday, really kind of took the game to Brentford, and I thought kind of came away with a relatively deserved point. Again, I'm wary of kind of dealing in cliche that there is no easy game in the Championship, and I think we've not, certainly over the last kind of 2 or 3 games, we haven't been, earlier in the season we were just blowing teams away. We were scoring a lot of goals and just kind of blitzing teams. Yeah. We're not doing that at the moment, so we need to kind of continue picking up results and then playing against teams who are going to kind of come and sit back and kind of try basically play deep and stop us moving forward with pace. And I imagine you're going to do that against us at the weekend. So I think it's going to be a challenge to break you down. But as you say, it's about kind of trying to find that winning mentality, and kind of our promotion bid will kind of rest on these kind of fixtures being our sort of bread and butter.
I mentioned some of the likes of Gale and Rodriguez early. I mean, who do you think West Brom's key player will be at the weekend?
I think one of the players who's really gone under the radar and is probably at the key man is Matt Phillips. He didn't play at the weekend at Preston. We had to play Tyrone Mears at wing back instead, and he's kind of really adapted well to this wing back role. He kind of covers the whole right flank, and he's been getting, his numbers. He's already bettered his numbers from last season, and we're only 10 games into this season.
Yeah.
And he coming into this season, I think he was told by Moore, look, you need to be a key player. You need to be a leading player in this division, and he's really stepping up to the plate. So should Phillips be fit, which hopefully he will be by the weekend, he's a real kind of key player. Aside from kind of Barnes, Rodriguez, Gale.
Yep. Finally, then, Josh, I'll ask you how for your score prediction ahead of the game.
I will be, and apologies to all Reading fans for this. I think it's going to be a 2-1 victory for the Albion. I think we're just starting to get in that zone where we're turning the Hawthorns into a bit of a fortress, and we've got that ability. Certainly, we did it against Millwall, we did it against Preston, to not play as well and to start picking up wins. And I think we're gonna do the same. I don't think we'll kind of blitz you. I don't think we'll blow you away. But I think we'll probably pick up the 2-1 victory.
Yeah, I think for me it is a bit tricky to call before the midweek games, which obviously the scenario we're recording this in. But I do think West Brom probably will come away with it. I mean, if you go and lose to Sheffield Wednesday and we beat QPR, then who knows? But I think we haven't been blown away by teams this season, so I think I'll say 2-0 to West Brom. So slightly actually more pessimistic on our chances than you are. But I'm certainly hoping we won't get thrashed 7-1, which is the scoreline that you beat our opponents tonight, QPR, by back in August.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would have to be some go. No, that is the single worst opposition display I think I've ever seen at the Hawthorns. So you'd have to. It would be spectacular if you came and played that badly, and I don't think you will.
My thanks then to you, Josh, for joining me on the View from the Town End. All the best on Saturday and for the rest of the season.
Yeah, the same to you. Good luck.
It's now time then for me and Tom to discuss Reading's team news ahead of Saturday and pick our preferred lineups for the game.
Get social with the boys.
Find them on Twitter
at the Tilehurst End
and facebook.com/the Tilehurst End.
Welcome back to the Tilehurst End weekend preview, looking ahead to Reading versus West Brom, and it's time to discuss how Reading will line up at the Hawthorns. I mean, there's certainly plenty to discuss after Tuesday night, and we'll start with the injured players we're unlikely to see, Tom. Sam Baldock missed the QPR game, as did Jon Dadi Bodvarsson after missing out in the warm-up. So those are probably the two players that fans will want to see back ASAP, but it also seemed as though Tuesday was perhaps too soon for the likes of Paul McShane, David Myler and Gareth McCleary at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, honest answers, we're not entirely sure yet about Bodvarsson and Baldock. I think Bodvarsson's unlikely to play given he did pull out on Tuesday. Yeah. I think Baldock, though, he wasn't meant to be up for too long, and obviously he's missed the last couple of games, but if they can get him involved on Saturday, I'm sure they will. If not, I think he'll be back straight after the break, so I don't think it's too bad. They're both got calf injuries, which is an interesting one to look at. I think Clement said it might be fatigue already in the season for both of them, which obviously is a worry, but yeah, so those two, and then I think Myler and McShane should both be available for this one. Whether they get picked or not is another question. And then you obviously got Harriott and McCleary, who have played pretty much 90 minutes for the under-23s last weekend, so they're pretty much back in the sort of training squad now. So it's up to them whether they're picked or not. So yeah, in terms of those guys you just mentioned, hopefully most of them will be available. I think Bodvarsson's probably unlikely, which is a big blow given the way he's been playing at the moment.
Obviously top scorer for Reading at the moment. I think he's got one of the best minutes for goal ratios in the whole country at the moment, actually. So that's a difficult one for him to miss out. But with all those considered, Tom, what would your team be for Saturday?
So if we sort of presume that those guys will still be out, it'll stick with Walker in goal, and then I think he played well the other night. Back four, I would bring Blackett in for Gunter. I think I said it last week and it didn't happen, but so Yadom, Ilori, Moore and Blackett be the back four. Zatalai and Bakuna in the middle, and bring John Swift back in. He played well at Brentford. Bring him back in for Liam Kelly, and then I say Sims every week and he doesn't get picked, so I'm going to say it again. I hope he will too eventually. Sims, and then I think Barrow and Mate the only. Barrow and Mate as the other two, even though both of them, I think if Baldock and Bodvarsson are fit, I'd start them both instead of those two. But I think I'd have to say Sims, Barrow and Mate on the basis that the others probably won't be available to start.
As usual, we've gone for pretty similar teams. Actually, I've also stuck with Walker and Garvin. I don't think he's done anything horrendous sort of to lose his spot with Malone back fit. I would also recall Tyler Blackett to the team in place of Chris Gunter and keep Yadom, Moore and Ilori in defence. as you mentioned, John Swift should never really have been dropped after his display at Brentford, and that was quite a confusing one to see Clement put him back on the bench. So I would get him back in the team with Bakuna and Editalahi in midfield. And then I would have a front three of Mo Barrow, Josh Sims, and Mark McNulty. So that central striker is the only place where we differentiate. And I think for me, if Baldock and Bodvarsson are both injured, I would probably have a natural centre forward there in McNulty. I think if I was Mark McNulty, I think I'd be quite annoyed sort of to see Yaku Mate given a nod when Bodvarsson pulled out of the warm-up against QPR with a knock. I mean, I don't think McNulty's been given that much of a chance yet. I think this is sort of as good a time as any really to give him his opportunity. I think, saying that, Yaku Mate has just been given a new 4-year contract, so maybe the club is sort of seeing something we aren't at the moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think just in terms of John Swift, firstly, I think it might be the fact that I don't think he really plays 3 games a week very often, and maybe it was a thinking behind that decision there, because I think it was harsh to just drop him if it's based on performance only. But yeah, in terms of the striker, Mate, I think he did well at Brentford. I think he did okay the other night as well. It's the reason I went for him is I think West Brom are going to try and play out from the back, and I think he's more suited to pressing from the front. Then again, we haven't really seen him at McNulty, like you say. But when we have seen him, it's been him alongside Baldock have looked pretty good together. But as out and out on his own, whether he can lead the line, if he's got the physical presence like Mate definitely has to do that. The only way we'll see is if he does play, I suppose. But I think it's the way Mate's been playing at the moment. He's been playing okay, a 4-year contract. I'm not sure if he's quite earned that much for security at the club with the way he's been playing, but he's been playing okay. And I think if he's fit, he came off cramping up at the end of the Brentford game, so if he's fit to go again on the weekend, I think he probably will start him. But yeah, I think McNulty, like I say, he's going to be probably the main man to come off the bench if the others are still out. So I think he'll probably get his chance at some point on Saturday, and he's just got to grab his opportunity when it does come along. Because like you say, I imagine he's a little bit frustrated at lack of game time at the moment.
I think probably some fans might be a little bit underwhelmed by sort of how much we've seen McNulty so far. Obviously, top scorer in League Two last season, and not really got his opportunity so far in the Championship. So I think obviously with Baldock and Bodvarsson both out injured, I think he'll be looking at thinking, if I can't play now, then when can I play? And as you saying on Yaku Mate, that 4-year contract probably a little bit too much for him. But I think he's not made a bad impact on the side this season. I think he probably played a bit more than anyone thought he would play. But a 4-year contract, I'm not too sure what the thinking is behind that. But we'll move swiftly on either sides of the striker. We've both gone for Josh Sims and Mo Barrow, meaning no place for Sone Aluko, who did get a shock recall on Tuesday night and unsurprisingly failed to impress. Sort of. And was that just a case of sort of Paul Clement rotating his squad time? I think obviously he himself has admitted that he got the selection wrong, and sort of because as each passing game goes by, I mean, it sounds harsh, but I just do not see what Sone Aluko adds to this squad. I mean, he's had his chances, and Josh Sims and Mo Barrow clearly seem to be the sort of better options. And I think obviously with Gareth McCleary and Callum Harriott returning, I think they could both warrant a shot ahead of Aluko himself.
Yeah, I think it might take both of those two a little while to get back into the full swing of things. I don't think Barrow's been in particularly great form this season either. He hasn't scored a goal yet, I don't think. So they've got plenty of wingers there, but none are particularly grabbing their chance other than I think Sims whenever he plays. So I think he has to start playing games from the start at some point soon. The only thing with Aluko, I suppose, if you've got someone like that in the squad, Clement's just probably desperate to try and get the best out of him if he possibly can, just because when he is on fit and firing, he'll be one of the better players, but he hasn't been that way for a good year now, really. He hasn't played particularly great for obviously the back end of last season, start of this season. The fact he came back into the lineup Tuesday night was certainly a shock to most people, and it was an opportunity for him, a home game against a team also struggling, and he's failed to make any positive impacts at all. Got subbed off, first man to get subbed off again, and I don't think he'll be starting this weekend, but with the way the injuries are, he'll probably be on the bench and might get a chance to come on and do something, but he has to grab one of these opportunities when he's given it now, because I think, like you say, the others are getting ahead of him in the pecking order.
He very rarely completes 90 minutes and usually gets subbed off, so I think that tells you sort of all you need to know about Sone Aluko. I mean, there was perhaps one other talking point from Tuesday's team, and that was that John O'Shea was not even in the squad after serving his one-match ban. And I mean, again, you can sort of see the logic. This is a 37-year-old John O'Shea. I mean, he's never going to play 2 games in a week, but I would probably sort of maybe play them against QPR rather than against West Brom. And with Jay Rodriguez and Dwight Gale, I mean, I mean, although saying that, I mean, he didn't do too badly against good opposition in Watford. But do you think he could potentially earn a recall this weekend? Paul Clement might go back to the same back four against Hull with Thiago Lloris at right back.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly like you, really. I would have started him on Tuesday night. I thought he would have come back in the way Clement was speaking about him, and he, like you say, wasn't even in the squad. So, I think this weekend's opposition is less suited to the way he plays, I think, than Tuesday would have been. It would have been a perfect game for him to come in, and maybe he would have cleared that corner away a bit better, probably. But so I would have brought him in. But I don't think he's likely to come in and start, especially when you've got Blackett there, and the chance he could just start with Gunter again. It's the same back four as Tuesday night, so I think it's unlikely he'll come in and start the game, unless they maybe go for a back three or something and just have him sitting in the middle there and try and frustrate West Brom, which is a possibility, but I think it's unlikely he'll come back in and start, just based on the fact that he wasn't even in the squad the other night. But it's another good option. I certainly wouldn't be against him playing, given the way he played in that game against Hull.
You've also got Paul McShane coming back into the fold, so it'll be interesting to see sort of where McShane's place lies in the team. Obviously, he's the official club captain, but missed out on teams after that. I mean, I don't think he's played since that Blackburn game, in which he gave away the 2 penalties. So it'll be interesting to see sort of when Paul McShane is fully fit, whether he gets inside ahead of someone like John O'Shea, or whether his time at the club might potentially be up, I suppose. But getting down to the prediction for this one then, Tom, I think everyone apart from Johnny went for a win against QPR on Tuesday, only to be hugely disappointed, much like everyone associated with Reading. So how do you see Saturday's match panning out?
I think you have to say West Brom are probably going to win it. Just you look at the table, the way the teams are playing, and they have to be favourites, and they'll probably score a few goals. I think Reading could score as well. They do let in some goals, West Brom, so I think I'll go 3-1 West Brom, but I think it could be quite an exciting one, and just the defence I think might be lacking against those strikers that West Brom have got.
It is quite difficult to be positive after Tuesday night. As we have talked about, Reading did surprise us last weekend, but I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for West Brom for this one. I think if other results don't go our way, we could well find ourselves slipping back into the relegation zone going into the international break.
Yeah, I think I did have a little look at it. I think goal difference might just keep them out of it. But yeah, in terms of points, they'll be level with the bottom three, quite possibly after this weekend. And yeah, then it's going to be I think they got Millwall at home soon after the break or straight after the break, which if they lose that one as well, then it's going to be big pressure on to turn it around quickly. Otherwise, more pressure will be on the manager, and it's just the way it works. So hopefully they can go up on Hawthorns on Saturday and surprise us again and come back with something. And if they can do that, there'll be a bit of positivity around the place for a couple of weeks. If not, then it's going to be not a pretty reading for the table until sort of the end of October.
I think it's Millwall and then Birmingham. I think and maybe Ipswich as well. I think after the international break, so that's 3 teams sort of down there with Reading. So could be some key games in a couple of weeks' time. Because it is the international break next week, there'll be no weekend preview. We will return ahead of that Millwall game in 2 weeks' time. As for the main show, I'm not entirely sure if Mark will be recording early next week to look back on the West Brom game. He usually does, but if not, we do have a very special podcast in the pipeline with a former Reading player. I'll say no more than that and keep you guessing on that one. As the main show from earlier this week is well worth a listen, as well as reviewing the Brentford game. Mark and Will Jones take a trip down memory lane with a whole section on the 2008-9 season, with it being 10 years ago this season. As for the website, thetilehurstend.com, there's always plenty of content for you to read, including the report and the ratings from the QPR game, with the same to follow from the trip to West Brom. On a similar note, Tom, what can we look forward to on the Working in Paper in the next week or so?
Yep, so over on workinginpaper.com, we got, like say, the report on ratings as well from Tuesday night. Probably not pretty reading on either of our websites for that one, but then we've got the preview coming up for the West Brom game, and we're hoping to get an interview of someone at the club next week. Not entirely sure who yet or what day, but we're hoping to get something over the international break to put up. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll put that up on Twitter at Tom J Crocker as well.
Fantastic stuff. Keep your eyes peeled for that one then. Thank you very much, Tom, for joining me on a Tilehurst End weekend preview once again this week.
Thanks, Ollie. Cheers.
No worries at all. And thank you at home for listening to this week's show. I mean, it's not an awful lot of fun to be talking about Reading at the moment, so thanks for sticking with us. If you are travelling up to the Hawthorns this weekend, then have a safe journey, bring home the 3 points, and come on you ours.
The Tilehurst End Podcast.
By Reading fans, for Reading fans.